What happens when law, business, and life collide? Each week on Lead Counsel, your host Tom Tona will take a deep dive into topics related to the law, the business of law, and life. There will be insightful discussions with industry insiders, experts, and thought leaders making significant contributions and meaningful differences in their fields of expertise. Tom is the founder and managing attorney at TonaLaw. He has been a practicing attorney since 1994 and the leader of TonaLaw since it opened in 2001. The goal of this podcast is to provide you with free information on law and the business of law, and to give you actionable tools related to each of these areas. Now, here's Tom.
Hey, welcome back to the Lead Counsel Podcast. Your host, Tom Tona. Before we jump into today's topic, I just want to take a minute to thank the sponsors of the podcast. This podcast is sponsored by TonaLaw. If you're an attorney and you're looking for a trusted partner in New York personal injury referrals, TonaLaw has been doing this since 2001. We're the go-to New York personal injury law firm for attorneys and law firms across the U.S. At TonaLaw, we pay legal fee participation, referring attorneys in all jurisdictions where it's permitted. Refer us a case today and experience the TonaLaw difference. Call us now to discuss how we can work together at 844-TonaLaw or visit us at TonaLaw.com. If you're calling because you heard us on the podcast, just mention Lead Counsel when you make the referral, and they will get you on the phone with me. Today is a special episode. I'm doing a solo episode, and I was doing some homework, and I thought that this was going to be a good episode to share with the listeners. So I have a mastermind that I'm going to, and it's for 3 days. I'm going to be down in gorgeous West Palm Beach, and I'm presenting. And it's a closed mastermind. So just to give you the setting, it's a 9-person mastermind. It's facilitated by someone who's a very experienced EOS implementer and very experienced business coach in general, my good friend, Sarah Frasca. And in the mastermind are some very large firm owners and then some mid-sized firm owners, several personal injury firms, and there are also several larger estate planning firms as well as matrimonial firms. And I want to talk about the magic of the mastermind after I go through the magic of preparing for the mastermind and what it gave me a tremendous, tremendous gift. So, just fundamentally, we start at what's the name of the corporation and what is your role? How do you see yourself within the confines of the business setting? What role do you see yourself in? So I've always, for the last few years, considered myself a CEO and founder. That being said, that role and that belief has actually been challenged a little bit as of late. So I'll go into that as well. So the first thing that they talk about is, what are your stuck points? And this is a very almost hot seat type of analysis. In John Fisher's mastermind, the hot seat has helped me solve tremendous issues and accelerate growth. So here it's a different type of analysis where it's, what are your pain points? What are your 2 biggest challenges that you want to discuss with the group? So I won't be going into the micro of what my specific challenges are, but I will tell you that I have isolated 2 issues that I'm looking to discuss with my group. Now, the magic of this group is this full transparency, right? We all have to disclose all numbers at all times. And then the other magic of this group is that there's a 100% commitment. So no matter what you got going on, when we set those dates for these meetings, there is very few reasons that they'll allow you to miss. You miss one meeting, that's understandable. But you miss more than that, then, they'll be bringing that up to you. And that creates accountability. And I love that. So I have my 2 discussion questions that I'm going into this with. But right away, what that starts to do is frame my brain to, 1, think about the issues, and 2, to start reasoning through them myself, right? So that's an awesome exercise in and of itself, to just say, what are we challenged by right now? One of the cool things that they ask you to do in the beginning of your slide presentation is also talk about your personal life. They started off with, what are your personal goals, ambitions? What's your family situation? And they do that to really get you thinking about, what's your why, right? What is the why of what we do every day as business leaders, business owners, and who are you outside of your role in the business and the work that you do? And I love this part of the exercise, right? So I always talk about my family as my why. I always talk about the passions that we share as a family and the good stuff that's coming up. It sets the tone for a great meeting and it centers me as an owner and leader. And I love that. The next thing we talk about, what are your big personal goals for your life? Right? Atticus used to call it My Great Life. And what does that look like? And the last time I presented was a year ago. And what's awesome is this gives me a real zoom out with a year-to-date comparison. So last year, I was in a significant world of pain. Profit numbers were in the single digits. I was in extreme growth mode and I was in hyper investment mode. That's super stressful. I went to the group at the time and I said, hey, look, this is where I'm at. And they confirmed that we were on the right track. But I will tell you that this year, I'm in a great place despite massive, massive changes. Everything's back on track in my mind, in my heart. Everything's aligned. I have crystal clear vision of the future of the business, how it's impacting everything else around me. And everything that I have assessed and planned is now unfolding, and we are executing and in motion on so many different big needle mover initiatives. Then we give a little history about the firm itself. We were founded in 2001. One of the things that we've really done is narrowed our focus. It's always been two primary verticals: New York plaintiffs' personal injury and New York no-fault collections. But we experimented with several other verticals that we have since eliminated. So that's a big, massive change. Our number of employees went down slightly. We went down about 5 seats domestically and 2 seats internationally, but we're still right around 27 employees. And we went from 1 location to 3 locations. Again, the growth is there. And I love this exercise too, because it makes you look in the rearview mirror to say, how far have I come? Too often as business leaders, and for myself specifically, all I do is concern myself about where I want to go and where I want to take the business. And this is kind of a look back, right? And that's a healthy thing to do. So then we go through our accountability chart. And what this does is it forces us to look at the changes that have occurred or the changes that might need to occur. And, in EOS parlance, it's a right person, right seat analysis. And I love this. So we've got a lot of new faces. And then even going through the initial analysis from the accountability chart, we've had some change, and it's all great change. We've added a operations manager at the head of one of the verticals, and she just finished her first week, and I anticipate that it's going to be a really great relationship on the move forward. And then we have another addition to the management level, and that was a change from an initial person that was there. It's not a new role. And so again, it's constantly looking at the evolution and the leveling up of talent. Then it goes through all the verticals. I would say that the biggest change is in one of the verticals where we had a complete 100% leveling up of all seats. We've eliminated some seats. And again, the magic is in what the impact of that was. Some people's titles have changed. They've leveled up. And so for me, it's magical to see the transformation. But the biggest eye openers were getting into the numbers. One of the magical things that you do in this mastermind is you are completely transparent. So you're sharing your P&L, which might make a lot of people uncomfortable. But what I have found is you can't really grow without that transparency. And for me, the transparency in the numbers, not only is it very humbling, but it cuts through a lot of the crap that when you only talk in terms of top line, you tend to be very egocentric, right? So when you're talking in front of a group of your peers and they're running at a 20% profit margin and they're picking apart your numbers and they don't really care about the gross revenue, the magic that happens is you start to focus on what really matters. So the transformation in the numbers is palpable. So last year, where we were running at like a 5.6% profit margin year to date, and it's literally a year to date. So you're talking about January 1st, 2024 to June 25th, 2024, and then the year to date comparison. My profit margins last year were 5.6%. And again, we were in hyper growth. We expected those numbers to change, and they have in fact. And this year, we're at a 21% profit margin, and our numbers are up significantly. So the year to date percentage in profit is 318.55% increase in profit. So the numbers are really telling a story, and that only happens if you sit down, make the space to review your numbers. There are some verticals that are, my one vertical is performing way, way better than it did last year. And then the other one we know is a marketing issue. And there's been some market changes which have resulted in a renewed focus and concentration in that other vertical. The other magic that's happened is on the financials, you start to look at the other numbers that matter. For me, I've always had a hyper focus on accounts receivables. That tells me production, that tells me future cash flow, and I'm seeing a really robust AR number for the next 30 to 60 days. That to me tells me we're on track again for continued growth, continued profitability for this year. And then it forced me, at least in my presentation, I want to talk about why, what's accounting for the difference. And what I have realized is that there are components to scaling. And this is a key discovery. There are components to scaling that increase exponential growth without the same exponential increase in expenses or in spend. So we really accomplished nuclear change in the last 12 months, right? There's been a tremendous amount of what I call positive turnover. That's a term that I borrowed from Craig Goldenfarb, and it's actually a Disney term. Positive turnover refers to, if you think about the right person, right seat analysis, every time you have turnover, it's an opportunity to grow, to level up, to look at the next level of the person that should be in a certain seat. So we've had that with many, many seats. And I attribute that a lot to EOS and to the masterminds that I do, because at the end of the day, the clearer I get on the vision, the mission, the people, the technology, the finances, well, that's where the growth is born. So when you have growth, you have things that break. Okay. So 3 of the big nuclear changes are right person, right seat related.
This podcast is sponsored by TonaLaw. Attorneys, are you looking for a trusted partner for your New York personal injury referrals? Since 2001, TonaLaw has been the go-to New York personal injury law firm for attorneys and law firms across the U.S. At TonaLaw, we pay legal fee participation to referring attorneys in all jurisdictions where it's permitted. Refer us a case today and experience the TonaLaw difference. Call us now to discuss how we can work together at 844-TONA-LAW or visit us at TonaLaw.com.
And then we have an equalization in the verticals that pertain to the marketing that we do. Typically, I've always been very heavily focused on the personal injury vertical, and that's to the detriment of the other vertical. And then because of my marketing person, who's, basically a genius, he said, 1, you're missing significant opportunity by not focusing on both. 2, you need to spend as much on one as you do the other to get them to grow together. And then 3, it forced us to focus. So now when I do marketing meetings with my outside marketing fractional CMO, let's call them, I have my vertical heads on those calls, and that's been transformational. We've also increased the focus on marketing, both on referral marketing and digital, because like everybody else in December of 2024, digital went off a cliff when Google changed its algorithm. And at that point, I had been so focused on scalable marketing, which really comes down to digital focus in my mind. I had not paid a lot of attention at that point on referral marketing, but I had started to prior to the cliff of the Google algorithm change, thank God. And so there's been a lot of offset because I've been focused on both. I have also focused on just people in general, the connection economy, I'm calling it, or caring at scale. I do think that with the advent of technology where it's moving right now, that the real opportunities, the real true opportunities are in a renewed focus on team and a renewed focus on clients. Right? You can be the best lawyer in the world, but how you make your clients feel, that's the differentiator. And caring at scale is something very few law firms are mastering right now. And that's where my focus is. And yeah, I'm giving away the secret sauce because most people aren't going to do much with it. The next thing that's really changed is I've taken a very granular look from the top down, every single seat, with a hyper focus on operations. Scaling requires systemization. Scaling requires deep knowledge of your data and high levels of systemization. And so I'm looking at what's required and I am implementing ongoing change with regard to that. The other thing that's changed a lot is we're going full AI native. And again, this is very forward thinking. And to me, it's a non-negotiable at this point. The other element of scaling is making sure, and this came from Ali Katz, where in order to scale, you also need to make sure you're increasing your financial expertise, liquidity, that you're focused on eliminating and reducing bad debt and overhead, and focusing on force multipliers, right? And so for me, we've done that. I am now focused exclusively on hiring only the best, the brightest internally in every seat. And we are really, really spending a lot of time granularly focused on that. And then same thing with our vendors. I am only choosing to align with the best vendors out there. That's been a needle mover for me. So at one point, I think, I was kind of questioning who I was. And, I had used the title CEO founder. And so what that really did was that thought process really kind of kept me in a box that was, I think, somewhat detrimental, because I was attending a lot of conferences and masterminds. And it wasn't until I got a Saturday morning call from my good friend, Seth Price, who said, listen, man, you need to just stop everything and go get your hands dirty in the operations. Go back to fundamentals. So while I am still the CEO and founder, when we had a recent resignation, I just decided to go deep granular into the operations of the firm. And man, oh man, was that great, because what that forced me to do was look at people, processes, data. And what I found is that we were in a pretty good place to begin with a year ago, and there are no dumpster fires, but there are certain sparks and there are certain areas of smoke that, if you don't pay attention to them, will turn into that. So once you have your middle management team even set, you still need to get your hands dirty until you've gotten to the point where, you have a 80-person law firm like a Craig Goldenfarb, and he's got a full C-suite of people that are then just doing all of that for him. So I'm at the point now where I'm about 50% technician, right? And then 50% not technician, or CEO, as I like to call it. And it's exhausting, and I'm putting in 80-hour work weeks, but I've never felt more optimistic. I've never felt more excited. And I've also seen the benefits of doing that on a very granular level. So then the last slide is opening up my 2 current challenges, which again, I've done. And I'm very crystal clear about the questions I want the group to answer. Right. So I highly encourage 2 or 3 masterminds where you're just locked in. And if you're not feeling the things that we're talking about, maybe you've leveled up the mastermind that you need to do. Several of the people that are in this mastermind with me, I want to give significant thank yous to, Craig Goldenfarb, Lynn McGraw, Michelle Fuller. Oh my God, Michelle has been a lifesaver for me. In the last 12 months, Michelle was one of the few people that had gone through the nuclear change that I had and talked about it openly, candidly. And we have been talking on a, once a week, twice a week basis. Michelle has a very significant estate planning practice in Michigan and in California. She does catastrophic settlement planning, is really her sweet spot. Also, James Joseph and I and Mark Schneider went out to a very, very interesting lunch. It was about a 2-hour lunch where we did a mini mastermind right at the restaurant in Garden City. And it was really, really a big shift lunch for me. It got a renewed focus on different operational issues that I was struggling with. And they gave me great advice. And the other thing is that once they give you the advice and they tell you what needs to be done, they're going to kick your ass until you do it. Right. So I know I'm going into this thing, and over the next 3 days, they will be challenging me. They will be forcing me to expand beyond where I currently am. So it's been a pretty significant needle mover, just doing the homework, preparing. John Fisher's group does the same thing. You present for half an hour and you do the homework ahead of time, right? In doing the homework, that's the magic. It forces you to prepare and to understand what you're preparing. So if you don't know your numbers, if you don't know your challenges, you're not really running a business. And one of the other things that it's done is it's forced transformational growth on me personally, right? You have to be willing to ask hard questions and be ready for the fact that the answers you get are not going to make you feel good, right? So in the last 2 weeks, I spend 80 hours a week working through files. I have been speaking with dozens and dozens of clients, and I'm asking team members, how are we doing? I'm asking clients, how are we doing? And taking that feedback. And we are now going to make that part of our KPIs. We are going to make that part of our growth processes. Our new systems are going to revolve around it. So if you're the type of person who's got a fragile ego, this space ain't for you at this point. You got to be willing to hear the hard truths, make changes, and not be judgmental. As I am often saying right now to myself and to my team, all feedback is important. That doesn't mean it gets equal weight, which means that you have to take it where it's coming from. If Michelle Fuller or James Joseph or Mark Schneider or Craig Goldenfarb or Lynn McGraw give me feedback, you be damn sure I'm taking that feedback. And intimately, I know that I can trust them. They know my numbers. They know my pain points. Conversely, if somebody's at a cocktail party who I just met and they're giving me advice, if they're not doing what I'm doing, I'll take the feedback, but I will also put it in its proper place. So hopefully this episode was helpful. It was helpful to me. I'd love to hear any feedback you have or any follow-up questions. Thank you for listening to this episode of Lead Counsel Podcast. Your host, Tom Tona. Go anywhere podcasts are distributed. Follow us. Leave us a 10-star review. Share some episodes with your friends. And thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Thank you.
This podcast is sponsored by TonaLaw. Attorneys, are you looking for a trusted partner for your New York personal injury referrals? Since 2001, TonaLaw has been the go-to New York personal injury law firm for attorneys and law firms across the U.S. At TonaLaw, we pay legal fee participation to referring attorneys in all jurisdictions where it's permitted. Refer us a case today and experience the TonaLaw difference. Call us now to discuss how we can work together at 844-TONA-LAW or visit us at TonaLaw.com.